in the sky.
It's a bird! It's a plane!
It's Superman raising teenagers. Did the CW do this justice? Was the series premiere of Superman and Lois epic, and did it do its job? What did you think? Let's talk about it. Welcome to Durbania. I'm Durbin, and this is my spoiler talk review for the series premiere of Superman and Lois. Did the CW do this justice? Did this series premiere do its job? Which is to get me hooked and want to know what on this green earth is going to happen with the season? Yes and yes, I think the CW did this justice, and it was a great series premiere that got me hooked. If I had to rate this episode by itself, I'm bordering A-. I really enjoyed it. It had a different cinematic feel. It had a great tone, and it didn't have any of that CW angsty drama that just ends it all for me. I loved the Arrowverse. The first 2 seasons of Arrow were great. Season 3 started to go downhill. Season 4 jumped off the cliff, and it never returned for me. And I just gave up on the show in season 6. It's like, I am so done with this. And The Flash lost me after a little bit. Supergirl lost me after season 2. I watched Crisis on Infinite Earths, and it was okay. I don't feel like I have to watch it again, and the only thing I'm interested in going forward right now is Superman and Lois. I went into this with a hopeful optimism because the trailers for this look good, and they look different. Like, you could tell this episode was shot different, had more of a cinematic feel. It just looked different than the other CW shows. Plus, I mean, come on. I freaking love Superman. I am biased towards Superman. Yes, no matter what, I was going to give this thing a chance. So one of the first things that I really liked is it feels like in this series premiere, this episode establishes its own kind of self-contained universe. I feel like if they ever wanted to connect it to The Flash and Supergirl and all of that stuff again, I feel like it would work. Those roots are still there, sort of. At the same time, it stands on its own. I mean, the very opening of this episode gave us a summary to show us this Superman's origin really fast and to build us up to where we are today presently with him having teenagers. And the way they built it up, the way they told its story, it is its own self-contained universe, and if it never ever attached to the rest of the Arrowverse and remained its own self-contained thing, I think that would make it even more interesting. So I think it stands on its own 2 feet just fine, and just the way, again, the way it's shot, the way it looks, it stands out as something unique and different than the rest of the Arrowverse. And Tyler Hoechlin was awesome as Clark Kent Superman. Like, he gave a stellar performance. I thought he was pretty good in Supergirl and the other times he appeared in the Arrowverse, but to finally see him standing on his own and be Superman, he did an absolutely fantastic job, and I would love to see this guy continue to go forward in this story. Now, like I said, they did a summarization to sum up the career of Superman to get us to where we are right now. And they did a great job. They treaded familiar territory and didn't camp out there. So we saw his ship crash, and we saw the Kents find him, and that was something that looked awesome. Like, the pod opens, and there's little baby Clark, and all this, like, watery goo comes spilling out. Like, it's weird looking, but it looked good. But we retread that territory. There's this part where we see Clark Kent as a teenager on the streets of Smallville, and I went, is that the Talon? Like, I was comparing it to Smallville, but I was doing it in the best possible way because it reminded me of Smallville. It reminded me of those other things, and that's what it did well. Because it didn't need to camp out there. It just needed to bring us back to that familiar place. We know this story. When Jonathan Kent collapses on the streets of Smallville with a heart attack, we know that story, and so you could feel it. And then when he becomes Superman, we get this shot in Metropolis in the early part of his career. This car comes off this bridge, is hurtling down towards this kid. Superman catches it, and he's wearing the 1940s Superman outfit that's in those animated cartoons that are just so incredibly good. I love them. And it was awesome to see them pay homage to that, to see the suit that he was wearing and even catching the car. It was like that Superman #1 cover. So it was great how they played on that nostalgia.
Cool costume.
Thanks. My mom made it for me.
How Clark and Lois met. Like, we get a little bit of their chemistry in Crisis on Infinite Earths, and it's fine, like, whatever. This was great. Just in the first few minutes, when Perry White is giving Clark Kent his first tour of the Daily Planet, and he meets Lois Lane, like, in his performance, there was just enough Christopher Reeve that it brought in that nostalgia, and you really enjoyed it, but there was also something unique to his performance, so it's like, it's not quite the same thing, and the lines between Clark and Lois were good, and it did a good job establishing their chemistry, showing them getting married, how he proposed, all of that stuff. It did a great job not only summing things up to get us to where we are, but just having us enjoy this summary, enjoy seeing this relationship, enjoy seeing the stuff that we already know, and moving forward to this new territory that we're going to explore. And I gotta say this, Martha Kent has a stroke right here at the beginning, and she passes. Now, her role is barely anything. Like, we've seen her in it, but not a ton. But this is where it did a great job playing on our Superman nostalgia. Even if you're not the biggest Superman fan, you still get it. You still get this relationship. And it did a great job that when she passed, I felt it. Laura, my wife, sitting next to me this morning watching it, we felt it. We both looked at each other and said, it's too early in the morning to have the feels. That's how we knew already, even in this summary and what it was doing a good job establishing relationships, characters, and bringing us in. So now she's passed, and we go to Smallville for the funeral and all the things that have to be taken care of there. And this is where we really get to know Jonathan and Jordan, the twin sons of Clark Kent. And I think they did a great job with this relationship. One of the cool things about the relationship between these brothers is they didn't have that CW angsty drama where one is cooler than the other, and so one is envious of the other, and they have this stupid, awkward tension, and they're competing with each other, and the weak one's like, oh, all right, I will never live up to my brother. My parents love him so much more than me. They had none of that crap. Jonathan, the one who is more naturally athletic and stronger, cares about his brother Jordan, who is physically a little bit weaker, has a social anxiety disorder, and he cares about his brother and wants to take care of him. And Jordan respects his brother Jonathan. So rather than throwing weird, angsty drama into this relationship that they so could have done, they had a good, solid relationship. And I think it added to the strength of the show. And a good thing with Lois and Clark, too. Because what I liked is Lois and Clark, they're in disagreement. Lois wants her twin boys to know that Clark is Superman. Clark doesn't want them to have that burden the way he carried that burden all of his life. So here's Lois and Clark in disagreement, yet unified and on the same page together. And I thought that was a terrific example of a strong marriage. And so presenting these two strong relationships between the twin boys and between Lois and Clark did establish a lot of good, solid strength right out of the gate and made me even more attached to these characters. One of the things that was very interesting, again, since the twin boys don't know Clark is Superman, we revisit Clark Kent's tension. His tension has always been wanting to attach more to people, but this greater call to save the world. Throughout all 10 seasons of Smallville, he wants to be closer to his friends, especially at a time when they don't know his secret, but something happens and he's got to rush off, use his powers, and come up with some sort of lie. So on the one hand, he disengages with his friends, but on the other hand, he saves them. And so it's this interesting trade-off and tension, but now we've taken that to the next level. He's totally comfortable with Lois. She knows everything. But can you imagine toddlers knowing that their dad is Superman? They ain't keeping that secret. I get why Clark didn't tell them when they were toddlers, and that conversation only gets awkward as they get older, and I actually understood where Clark was coming from and not wanting to tell his freshman sons that I am Superman. He didn't want them to bear that burden. Like, I understood his line of thought and reasoning because of Superman history and the way they showed me that history. But I also agreed with Lois. So, like, I agreed with both of them, and it did a good job helping me understand where they were both coming from. In the end, Lois is right. You know? I mean, that's a good lesson to learn right now, that your wife is always right. Lois is right, and Clark needed to tell his sons his secret. They were at that age. It was time for them to know. And so this accident happens on the farm after Martha's funeral, where all these like pipes fall, and it's Jordan who saves Jonathan. It's Jordan, the weaker looking one, that has the powers. I thought that was predictable. I kind of thought that was what was going to happen. And they did this really great scene because Clark always told his boys not to go into the barn because there's things in there that will kill them. I thought that was hilarious because I knew Clark didn't mean farm equipment. He meant alien equipment. So they sneak around in there and they find the ship. It doesn't react to Jonathan, but it reacts to Jordan. When Jordan touches the side, it's like the skin of the ship opens and it hands him a crystal. They didn't go anywhere with that in this episode. So that's probably part of the season arc. He's got this crystal. What is he going to do with it? And once they come and confront Clark, and this is what we get in the trailer, where he's standing in front of his boys, he picks up the truck and hovers over it. They see that he is Superman. And of course, there's the anger, the tension, and all of that stuff. But they do a good job of having the twin sons reconnect with Clark because Clark is really just trying to connect with them on a new level, which is the whole reason why they're thinking of moving back to Smallville. The whole reason that Martha, as she was passing, wanted Clark to come back to Smallville. There was something special about Smallville and the simpler life that allows for that connection, as well as the extraordinary to grow. And there's something fishy going on in Smallville, but I'll get to that in a second. We go back to that tension. Here he wants to connect with his sons, but he's not always there for them because often he's off saving the world, which includes them. So it's not like he's trying to get away. He wants to be a part of their life. So now we're going to see him learning this balance of being a father first, family first, but also, he's Superman. So talking about a seasonal arc going on here, the episode opens with this amazing action sequence of Superman saving this nuclear power plant. Somebody came in and did something bad to this power plant, and Superman saves it. Whoever that person is wrote something really small in Kryptonian that Sam Lane, Lois's military father who knows Clark Kent is Superman, comes and shows Clark to show him that whoever this person is, he knows more about you than you realize. Like, this person could write in Kryptonian. They knew Superman is Kal-El, last son of Krypton. Like, they knew things that maybe they shouldn't know. So that's kind of interesting in building kind of an interesting villain who looks like Master Chief from Halo and the costume that he wears. Again, this was an interesting moment because here they are in Smallville and Lois is saying you need to put your family first. You can't go rushing off to save the world. And Sam Lane walks up to his daughter and says, this is what I warned you about. You fell in love with Clark Kent, but you married Superman, and Superman cannot have a normal life. So this tension of Clark needing to be there for his family and put them first. And you know what? He does. He doesn't rush out or do anything with that villain. He puts his family first. And then a little bit later, Clark hears something going on at another nuclear power plant, so he rushes off because Lois is like, we'll be fine. Go save the world. So he goes to save the world and fights this villain. And we really learn that this villain knows a lot about Superman. But listen to this really interesting line.
Where I come from, let's just say the two of us have history.
And where is that exactly?
Nowhere now. My world was destroyed.
So his world is destroyed, but he and Superman have history in another world. He knows Superman can't see through lead. He knows his weakness is kryptonite. And he acts like a typical Superman villain. Stabs him with kryptonite and just kind of lets him fall. He could have chased Superman down and really dug the knife in deeper. No, instead he just lets Superman fall. Of course Superman's gonna rally and he's gonna pull out the kryptonite and he's gonna survive. You have to assume those things, okay? My goodness. But then at the end, he comes back to the ship and we get the big reveal.
Captain Luthor.
Captain Luthor? That's pretty awesome, because I even said this to Laura as I was watching this episode. I was like, I'd be curious to meet Morgan Edge, but I don't really need to meet Lex Luthor because, well, it's this guy.
You're not Lex?
That's not my favorite interpretation of Lex Luthor in the Supergirl series in this present Arrowverse. And I was like, I don't really need that Lex Luthor. Then the reveal comes that this dude is Lex Luthor, but his world is destroyed. Does that mean in the Crisis, his universe was destroyed? He somehow survived it? He made his way to this universe where now he's ready to pick a fight with Superman? Which raises the question, does this Tyler Hoechlin Superman live in the universe where he teamed up with the Flash and knows Kara and is part of all of that? Or is this a whole separate continuity in its own universe? Now there's some interesting questions raised. They did a good job with that, in my opinion. The other thing interesting is Morgan Edge. Now, I know Morgan Edge from Smallville as this crime lord who grew up with Lionel Luthor. Here we're seeing him buy up the Daily Planet. We never meet Morgan Edge yet. but he buys up the Daily Planet and does massive layoffs, including laying off Clark Kent. And also what helps them make the decision that they're going to move to Smallville and move to the simpler life. So I'll be curious to see how is Lois going to adjust, leaving the big city and all of that stuff, and how she's going to adjust as the season progresses. But when we get to Smallville, we see Lois being the reporter, because in getting the deed to the farm and all of that stuff, we're finding that Morgan Edge is buying up a lot of property in Smallville, a lot of personal farms and the coal mine and all of that. And Lana Lang's husband is pretty excited about this because it's giving a lot of people jobs, which it's interesting what he says here, because this introduces another bit of tension. Why should Clark return to Smallville? Because a lot of people, they get their college degrees, and they never come home. They never take what they've learned and bring their expertise back to the place that raised them and make it better. So Smallville is faltering. So for somebody like Morgan Edge to come in and do these things that are making jobs is good for the town. But Lois and Clark know Morgan Edge is a bad guy, and no matter how good his intentions look, he's got an evil heart and he's got an evil motive. So why is Morgan Edge buying up farms and property in Smallville? What is his interest? Does Morgan Edge know Clark Kent is Superman and this is where he grew up? So it does a good job going, okay, who is this Luthor at the end of this episode? What is Morgan Edge's interest in buying up property in Smallville as well as the Daily Planet? All places coincidentally around Clark Kent. So I'm curious to see what they're going to do with this season. CW, a little bit of advice. With this show, just don't be yourself. Don't do it. Just don't fall into the trap of thinking, what teenage angsty drama can we throw into this crap? Nobody wants to see that, okay? I don't want to have another hashtag in the Lana drama situation or anything else going on here. So let's just not do that. How about CW, you don't be yourself and you continue to make this show as epic as you did this series premiere and keep it drama-free. How does that sound? Because this is freaking excellent and an incredibly strong open in a series I am very interested in. So, what did you think of this series premiere? Are you hooked? Are you curious to see where it's gonna go? Let's talk about that in the comments. While you're there, hit that subscribe button to become a Durbanian. Hit that bell by the subscribe button so you're notified for my next movie review, ranking video, theological analysis, trailer reaction, or anything else I do here. I'm Durbin. Thanks for checking out Durbania.